this method of using the clone stamp to get data from one layer to another is quite nice because then we can dynamically kind of paint areas from one motif onto a base motif, so we can then offset and create shadowed effects. Also, the clone stamp tool, right now you pick up the source by holding Control and click, and then pick a point for the destination to set that offset. In the future, there's going to be a numeric entry that we can numerically specify what the offset is, so that we can specify the source and the destination to be exactly a repeat distance, or in this case set it to 0, and then it will act to clone from one layer to another. So those are tools that are coming along. Now let's look at our layers. Those are the ribbons, those are the rings. Let's go back into repeat mode, and let's color this up a little bit. Bring my palette back. Using the flood fill tool, make sure I'm in contiguous mode. I'm going to fill the ring and the ribbons. Oopsie. Always make sure you're on the right layer, because the flood tool always boundaries to the active layer. And right now the flood tool doesn't pass the repeat boundary. In the future it will. So right now you just have to kind of hit your points right. That looks nice. Well, I wouldn't put the carpet in my house, but it looks nice. So now I'm in a half match repeat. But what I'd like to do for this design is create a counter change and change the color of these rings so that they alternate maybe. So what I can do is I'm going to extract a single match repeat from this half match pattern. Right now that's the single repeat and that's the half match repeat. So I'm going to use the selection tool to create a rectangular selection. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the selection mode to a fixed size and specify, right now this document you see is 800 pixels by 600 pixels, or if I switch my unit to inches, it's 80 by 60. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a fixed size that's twice that, so 160 inches by 120 inches. And then I'm going to place this where I want the single match repeat to fall, which I'll get 2 rings on one side and 1 2/2 on the other side. And then by using the crop to selection tool, what it's going to do is it's going to crop this document to this new selection and create the document bounds to be the size of the selection. So when I crop to selection, right now that tool's a little slow. It's going to get better. Right now it looked like nothing happened, but if I turn off my repeat mode, now we see that the single tile looks like this. So if I go into Image, Graphic Repeat, change it from a half match to a straight repeat, the pattern shouldn't change. The layers are still preserved even though we've done the cropping. And now I'm going to use my paint bucket tool, and let's fill some of these rings a different color. So that's the single repeat. That's the straight repeat, or the straight match drop. Now, what if we decide to see what this would look like on a black background instead of a white background? Maybe we want to do the carpet in black and not white. What we can do is we can simply, instead of filling the background with color, remember that all of these layers are essentially layered on top of one another with transparency in between, so that if I turn off all the layers, all we see is white. Essentially, what we can do is we can specify the background color as being the home color for what we see as being the color that is revealed when all of the layers show transparency through to the background. So if I switch the home color to black, all of the areas that are transparent will show as the background color. This is why it's important that when you're doing cleanup, that instead of drawing black pixels and white pixels to clean up areas, you want to instead draw black pixels and then erase pixels back to transparent. Or else what you would get is those areas that you painted white would actually stay white and not change to the background color. So by toggling the home color, we can essentially set the background color to any color we choose, and it's the color that is represented as the transparency when all the layers show through. If I toggle the home color button twice, it turns off the home color so that we see as a checker pattern what area is transparent. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my white color, and using the fill bucket again, but this time with a contiguous, with a global mode instead, I'm going to fill all of my black pixels to white on both layers. So now, when I set my home color to black, we can see what this design looks like on a black background, or a violet background, or whatever we choose. So it's important to note that there is a big difference between erasing and painting with a color that looks like the background color. Turn on the grid again. If we zoom close, you see that the grid is on a black background, the grid is kind of a dark gray, so we should still be able to see where our repeats drop. There will be options to specify the grid darker or lighter, or even specify custom colors, so that way we see where the repeats fall. That concludes this episode of the new feature workshop. Everybody should be creating their own videos of using these tools on one of the projects that they're working on.